or an urn or what, but it's a form turned out of a pretty good sized red cedar log. It's natural edge. It's about 8 inches by 8 inches, and it's footed and it has a detailed foot. There's a second picture for that.
All right, we're just muting everybody else.
There you go. And it's finished in lacquer, gloss lacquer.
Yeah, nice.
How many coats you give something like that?
You know, I don't really count, probably 7 or 8.
Did you put a sealer on it first, Bob, or just?
Yeah, after I think this one was sanded to 320 or 400, and then sanding sealer, and then multiple coats of lacquer.
Mm-hmm.
It for some reason the bottom shot looks better than this one in terms of the glossy finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that cedar really can suck it up. If you don't use sealer on it, you can.
Uneven. It's very uneven absorption.
Yeah.
And I did make a comment that I always make a point of doing something elaborate with the base, because potential customers invariably, the first thing they do is turn the piece over and look at the bottom. So
Yeah.
this one has a 3-step platform in the base.
Doesn't
How
look
do
like
you
it-
sign your work, Bob?
Yeah, I haven't signed this one yet, but I always sign it and date it.
And you engrave it?
Yeah, I use, you know, a cryogenic thing.
And why do you do that after you lacquered it and not before?
It burns in better. It gives you a more distinct imprint.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
I don't know about burning lacquer. The one time I tried a wood burner on a lacquered piece, I got some fumes I didn't like. And I will say, if you're dealing with cedar or redwood, by all means, use the lacquer, because the tannins in that wood tend to flat out retard the cure of oils and polyurethane, and that stuff can stay sticky for months. So yay for you for using the lacquer, Bob. Good choice.
Okay, I just like the glossy shine. And this is an ambrosia maple piece, similar concept. This one's about 6 inches wide and 8 inches tall. Otherwise, I think sanded to 320 or 400 and many coats of lacquer. And again, you can see what I do with the bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, where do you take your photography? In your house or downstairs in your workshop?
Downstairs in my workshop.
So I'm just wondering whether your work would look even nicer with a more uniform professional background, the way John Vase has introduced that to our club. What is your thinking behind that when you don't see the folds of the paper that you folded out or the background?
It actually it's a piece of cloth, and they're sitting on a platform, and there is an overhead light. I don't know. I just do this because it's easy and convenient. I don't have to store that big paper backdrop.
I think Stefan just wants you to iron it.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. I fold it between uses, so.
Well, no, on a serious note, I think the woodworking, the photography also matters a lot, and the background is part of it. And I think the blue doesn't go with the wood. It doesn't bring out the beauty as much, and the folds do distract. So I think photography is important, but that's my opinion.
Well, I couldn't argue with you. This is just convenient for me.
Understand?
I do have a white background, but I actually thought the colored background was more dramatic.
It's better than white for sure.
What color would you suggest for a photography backdrop? I mean, I went to Jerry's Art Supply. They had multiple colors of paper backdrop. I took gray. What do you think is good for woodwork?
I
So
think
Greg, it depends on the work, but, oh, John Vase is on the phone, on
Yeah.
the call.
Let's let John
I'll
answer that one.
Pass it over to you.
Yeah, I vastly prefer neutral backgrounds. So anything, you know, in the gray to dark gray range. I love the graduated background, but if I'm using a cloth or something like that, I definitely stay away from colors. I just go with something neutral because I find colors just draw your eye away from the piece.
Okay, thanks.
That also gave me an idea because I get a lot of glare and those other photographs have a lot of reflections from the lamps. I'm going to get a piece. I've got a piece of prismatic plexiglass and I'm going to put that up under the main spotlight that I use just to diffuse it. So there might be no hot spots. I'm going to try that.
You will still get hot spots if you have a glossy surface, but I do like the idea of softening the light, which is what the plexiglass will do. Softer light is better than harsh light.
Yeah, and I've got prismatics and all little tiny little prisms in it. So I think that'll diffuse it pretty well. I'll try it. I'll let you know. Thanks.
Okay.
Merrill?
Yeah, this is a 15-inch cherry bowl that I did a while back. Nothing really fancy about it. It's just that I liked it. It's about 6 inches deep. Makes good for, well, 5.5, I think it was. Makes good for either fruit or salad or whatever.
Form.
Yeah, nice form, and I like the rim too on that.
Me too.
Thank you.
Nice.
It's really a lovely piece. The cherry's always really nice, and the nice simple forms are great.
Cherry
Well done.
is one of my favorite woods to turn. I have, probably another 15 pieces of cherry that are 12 to 14 inches in diameter, plus a lot more cherry burls that I'm working on.
So you're saying you have enough to share for everybody. That's great, Will. I appreciate it.
All right, this one is number 12 in a series of 16 cherry burls that I've been doing. 10 of them are pretty much the same, but I ship them off to California. And this one is about 13.5 inches in diameter and about 6.5 to 7 inches, depending upon where you measure it. And it was a little bit religious, so I've been playing around with some different epoxies, and I found that white pearlescence with cherry looks really nice.
Yeah,
That's great. What epoxy did you use? Like just a 5-minute, or do you use?
No. I used about 3 different kinds on the. I filled a lot of those 10 cherry burls with epoxies. I used some of them. I used the System 3 15-minute epoxy. Some of them I used the epoxy from Inlace. So between those two, those were the 2 that I happen to have in my shop.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah, I like the natural edge on that too. Looks great.
Real pretty piece of wood.
Yeah.
Hey, Merle, back on that piece, how do you market those? Do people think that with the bark on it, it's like a rustic or a rugged kind of thing? Or is it Do you still market it as like luxurious or something because you have basically thin walls?
Yeah, it depends upon the piece. The 10 that I shipped off to California were pieces that somebody had called and asked for. And the other ones, it just, however they come apart, I always market them pretty much by cost of materials plus the number of hours that it takes me to do it. And then I have my labor rate that I do. So most of the natural edge bowls that I do are anywhere from $500 to $1,800.
Okay, wow.
So, wait,
Sells them for.
1,500, he said?
Thank you.
You bet.
A little quick, sorry.
So
Raymond,
this, thank you. I'll apologize if I posted this one once before, but I couldn't remember for sure. This is a cigar humidor I made for my grandson for his second Christmas in the Army. And he's still in the Army currently. This is a ornamental cherry tree that died, not in my yard, but down the street. And when the guy dug it out, he threw it on a curb and I salvaged it. So, and the walnut, it was a little wet, not much, but it certainly wasn't all the way dry. And I was concerned that it would warp or split. So I tried to stabilize it by using the walnut inserts for the joints and for the top and the bottom. So that gave me the cherry on the sides and the walnut on top. That's the moisture meter for the humidor on top. What I didn't get a good picture of, there's also an inlaid Army medallion, a small one on the other side of that. And inside on the bottom, there's actually a slight taper that you don't see. So there is a half-inch standoff that allows you in the bottom that allows you to put the gel into for the moisture for the cigars. And it's that is finished with let's see, I think that might be wipe on poly. So I was looking for something a little bit more durable, and then buffed out on the Beal.
Ray, is the walnut end grain or side grain?
It's side grain.
Oh yeah, that's risky.
Yeah, side grain on the top, but end grain on the joints.
So Ray, you didn't introduce your partner there.
He's coming up. He's coming up.
He's coming up. He's actually submitting some items tonight.
All
This is my
right.
grandson, Devin Stalek. He was 13 when he made the products, which are the projects, and that's only a couple of months ago. And he's 14 yesterday, right? Was it yesterday? 2 days ago?
2 days ago, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is
Happy
the other
birthday.
kind. This is another companion piece for cigars. That's of course Ambrosia Maple. That's the second one I made. The very first one I made, I used a Monte Cristo Churchill, which comes in a metal tube. And the metal tube in the other one I made was used as an insert, like its own kit. So unlike a lot of the other cigars that have a kind of a screw top, the Monte Cristo Churchills are split right about the same spot where this one's split, and the metal tubes have like a slip over lock. So, but this one I wanted to make without using the insert, and it does also take the Monte Cristo Churchill. So the size on a Churchill is, I had to look it up, it's 6.7 to 7.5 inches, and they're about 5/8 to 3/4 round. There isn't actually a standard, but there's kind of a range where they fall in.
So did you drill that out, Ray?
Yes,
Okay.
but it's drilled to depth without having plugs on the end. So it made it like a standard box,
Yeah.
but with the, actually, I think that one I used a 1-inch twist drill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's beautiful. And
Yeah,
those are
looks-
really good cigars. I like them.
Yes, they are. Thank you.
Yeah,
I was gonna
gorgeous.
say, Ray, it looks like a 45, 40 or 45 ring cigar.
I think a Monte Cristo's, 45 or 47. It's one or the other. I had to look up what a ring is.
Sure, it's
But
not
there's-
46.
It could have been, but it's 46. Now I forgot what the number, it's 46 of 100 a ring size, or 40. It's an oddball. I know that. So
Well, the
it's its
box
own
looks
measurement.
great.
All right, so this is Devin's.
Yeah, so this was, I think, my first one that I made, first ever project on a lathe, like period. And so this is made out of maple. And so basically what it does is you put it on a table this way, like vertical, and you push it, and it's supposed to roll forever. But this one was a little off balance, so it would go a couple of rotations without falling over. But so after I took it out with the
There's a spindle roughing gouge. Just
spin-
almost the whole project was done with the spindle roughing gouge.
yeah, and then I took the like burning wire.
Yeah.
And
We used a point tool to make the grooves, and then those are burned in lines.
yeah.
So
And then
Very
we're gonna
nice.
put on later some little rubber tips on the end, which should give it more grip, like when it's rolling. So it should go a little bit farther.
it actually rolls end over end. It's a 90 millimeter long. The ends are 20 millimeter. The center is 27 millimeters. And it's a continuous curve, but it's not. It's more like a French curve. It's not, it's more, flattens towards the center and sort of dives towards the tip. Like I said, as Devin said, we ordered these little, if you buy them commercially, they seem to come with a little rubber foot on each end. And that kind of grabs the table as it's rolling forward.
Yeah, it doesn't roll like this, it rolls like that.
Tumbles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tumbles end over end. And it's the kids play with, and of course you can take it to school and put it on its side on the desk and spin it and drive everybody crazy. So.
Yeah, very nice.
Are you still making them?
Up, Devin.
Well, I had another one of these, but then I started to work on something else. But I might go back and make a couple more for my friends or something.
Did you make a
Yeah.
jig for them?
The second one we did was snakewood, I think.
Oh, okay. All right, good. I just was curious if you made like a jig or something, because I've made these before, and I had a 3D printed a jig that somebody had put up online. It's kind of cool because then you can measure it out, you get the proportions right and whatnot.
Huh.
So if you're interested, let me know.
Thank you.
I'm just blown away about how nice and even that curve is.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I mean, people that, you guys all know this, but non-turners, like Devin's friends, would be like, yeah, that's cool. I don't think they understand what goes into getting that kind of proportion and even curves on both sides. Good job, man.
Yeah, well, at first I didn't think much of it either, but when I actually started doing it, I was like, dang, this is actually pretty hard.
It is very hard.
Yeah,
You
very good
nailed it, in
job.
my
Very
opinion.
good job.
Yeah.
Okay, guys,
Really nice.
who's not embarrassed by this beginner skill?
Well, I
Very
saw the
good.
fact that he's burning lines, and I want to talk to him about basket illusion. So
There you go.
This guy's gonna send you down a rabbit hole, let me tell you.
These are both this project and the next one you're going to see. I'm going to tell you that they're like 99% Devin. I made sure
Wow.
I made sure all of the chucks were tight and everything was safe, operated in a safe way, but he did all the tool work. Devin's done some work before with wood, so we've made, he made some three-dimensional porpoises on the bandsaw, and then we started doing a couple of scroll saw projects. But once he saw the lathe, I think he's just,
Yeah.
that's it for him. I think he's going to favor that. So this bowl, go ahead, Devin.
So this one is a black walnut bowl. I made it for my math teacher, and I thought it turned out pretty well.
About 6.5 inches across.
Mhm. Yeah, and if you see on the lower picture, I engraved my name on the bottom and filled it in with like it's like a gold like crayon kind of thing. And
Paint stick.
Paint stick, yeah. And so yeah, so it's not like completely smooth on the inside. I kind of had a taper at the top, like as you can kind of see. And I tried to match it up on the inside as well on the outside, so it kind of matches up like that.
Nice
Devin,
job.
was this your first bowl?
Yeah.
Your first bowl came out 1,000 times better than my first bowl.
Yeah.
My first bowl looked like a dog dish. So,
I'm ready to quit. I'm gonna try
Yeah.
down.
My first bowl.
and we're not just being nice to you because you're 14. I'm being serious. Like my first bowl literally looked like a dog dish. So
My
I hope
first
you
bowl
come
had a
back and
hole in it.
You bring more.
That's
It was a funnel.
great
Your
start,
first
Devin.
funnel.
That is
Got a
a
good eye for
wonderful start.
proportions.
Well,
Devin, I
yeah.
hope we see more.
It
of you.
wasn't on me. It was also him. He pretty much was instructing me like in my ear, talking to me the whole time. So he did a really good job trying to keep me straight and stuff.
Look at him
Lot of-
pointing to the passer. He doesn't even take credit. He points to the passer. Good for you, man.
Good
There you
teacher,
go.
great student.
So what did you do for the lettering on the bottom?
So I had this, or he has this, like kind of a metal, like it's a pen with a metal point on it, and it vibrates really quickly and like engraves it into the wood, so you can kind of hand draw or write whatever you want. So, and then you fill it in with the paint crayon.
Great.
Yeah, Cindy Droza demonstrated that paint stick some years ago, and I used it quite a bit. It's really good. It comes in different colors, light, dark, white, gold, whatever.
Yeah, it comes up nice on the walnut. So some of this walnut, I got a bunch of it from my veterinarian of all places about 4 years ago when I was telling her about it, and they were building she and her husband were building a craftsman style home, and they used a local sawmill to all their crown molding is black walnut, and they cut most of it about anywhere from 8/4 to 4/4. He had a kind of an assortment, and these all she had a big pile of cutoffs that she couldn't bear to put in the fireplace, and so I ended up with a couple of baskets full of assorted black walnut, and so I think it's from Graham, if I'm not mistaken, the tree, and it's turned out a bunch of really pretty pieces for me.
Well, Devin, you got
Congratulations.
a
Happy
bright
birthday, and Come
future.
back anytime.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great job, great finish. Very nice.
Thank you.
good job.
I was just gonna say, Ray, we are looking for younger members, so I'm thrilled that he's doing this.
Well,
Sign him up.
Devin has been at one of our live meetings, and I'm trying to remember what was demoed that day.
I don't know.
So I can remember who it was, and it was probably one of the offset boxes that we or pepper mills. I think we were doing. Who did the offset pepper mills? One of the last meetings before the COVID stuff kicked us out of there, but he was interested then, so that was a while ago. But we'll keep him going.
All right.
So real quick, their art explosion, you should come out there, Devin, and see us.
Yeah.
Bring your old man too.
Oh, thanks a lot.
All right, Stefan.
So this is a piece of unusual wood called Styrax, and I don't know why it has all these burls and tumors on it.
They all grow that way? Do they all grow that way, Stefan?
I wouldn't be able to identify them outside. I just got this without any leaves or just as it is, these two pieces.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how common they are, etc. So then I turned out of a piece of it, if you go to the next one, this vase right here to the right. And I incorporated the bark inclusions. And I bought this glass insert, which fits inside so that I can use some real flowers with water for the vase. And I finished it with Silicel and then on top of that, Canuba wax to have it smooth. And that's the story behind this one.
How did you wax the bark?
Sir?
How did you get wax in the bark?
So the bark I excluded with the buffing wheel, so there's no wax on there. It's just a sealer cell on the bark.
Got it.
And then in some areas down in the lower part, just small areas where some of the bark flicked off, I just used a pyrography pen and burned it, which almost looks like bark. So it's a good solution when the bark peels off.
Stefan, a question about the size for the vase in there. So was this wood green when you turned it?
Well, that's a good question. So I got it 4 years ago, and at that time I was collecting quite a bit of wood and never got to it. So now it's dry. I don't recall whether it was dry or not. Why do
Okay,
you ask that?
you didn't check it with a meter or anything. And how much room do you have in between that vase and the hole for it in there? I'm just talking from experience here, so I'm just gonna, because if you don't have a lot of space in there,
you get stuck.
Yeah, it'll break the glass even, right? If it's too tight and that wood's green, as it starts to dry, it shrinks. It'll just grab that vase and eventually it'll, just pop it, and you'll have a real mess trying to get the bottom out of there.
Well, so the wood is completely dry because it's 4 years old since I got it, but you don't want to sell it to Arizona, I guess, where it would, or come from the humidity of North Carolina, then in Arizona it would shrink. So you have to sell it to a North Carolinian customer.
Yeah.
Well, that hollowed out portion hasn't seen light of day in 4 years. So that's the risk, is that hollowed portion is suddenly exposed to air and may dry at a different rate.
Yeah.
I would have, yeah, fair enough. Maybe I should sell it this weekend then.
So Stefan, what is that wood like to turn? I mean, it looks like it would be like a fruit wood or something. Is it really fine grain? And by the way, the form is great. I love it.
Thank you. The turning was just nothing special, neither particularly difficult nor particularly easy. If anything, a little bit on the easier side, that there was not much tear out.
More shavings than dust?
No, more dust than shavings.
Okay. So it's dense.
Excuse me?
So it's dense.
Yeah, it's for density, at least from a weight point of view, it seems to be dense. Why do you correlate shavings and dust with density?
Yeah, if it's wet wood, you get longer shavings, and if it's dry, you tend to get a little more dusty.
Yeah, so the outside was the thing is dry, so it's dusty, yeah. But does it really reflect, why did you ask about the density? If it's dry and dense or dry and not so dense, it's all dusty, isn't it?
Depends on the wood, but yeah, generally speaking.
Okay.
I always find Paduke to be the worst.
Yeah, Paduke's always dusty. All right.
So the photography, again, thank you to John Vase for his lessons. I'm using here, what is it called? Is it satin? The black cloth that collects all the light?
Velvet?
Velvet, excuse me. Yes, I went to the, what is it, jeans fabric store. They had three different types of velvet. And it was the most expensive one that was suitable, but it's still difficult. As you can see down below, it doesn't look completely black. It does not swallow all the light. John, if you have any suggestion for that, I would be thankful for that.
Well, in this case, Stefan, it doesn't bother me in the least that it's a little bit lighter toward the bottom. Actually, it's kind of like a graduated background, you know, as you go up toward the top where it gets super black. If you really don't like it, you can, the easiest solution I found is I just use the clone tool in Light Shop or in Photoshop, and I'll clone from the darkest area of that background and clone out the lighter area below. But in this case, I wouldn't do it because I think it looks good the way it is.
Yeah, if it
thank
were
you.
any more solid black, it would almost look like a green screen effect.
Yeah, like we were floating in nothingness. So it gives it a kind of grounding, which I think is very attractive.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I'm
But, I
currently
think they
using-
both have their upsides and downsides about the black. But Stefan, so I was just playing around on my iPad earlier and they're editing stuff, just in the photos. One of the things they have available now is adjusting the black point. And what you need to do is just bring the black point up just a little bit and all of that stuff will just go away. So
No, that's
try
a
that.
great point, Mark. I've done that too.
Mr. Joe.
Okay, this is a request from a kindergarten teacher to make a maypole. And she requested that be 8 feet tall and be in 2 pieces so it could be easily transported. So I just bought some 1.25-inch pine dowels at the home center, and I spent some time trying to figure out how to connect them together to have a solid connection. Ended up in the electrical section and found these connectors, and that worked really good. And for the turning part, I just had a piece of maple and I drilled some I think those were 1-inch holes. And so the ribbons will be attached there. And I put a little bit of a knob on the top because they may put some ornamentation up there, and that's got a little indent in it so that can be firmly attached to the top. And it's about 6 inches in diameter, a little over 6 inches. And it was a simple little project, but something kind of interesting. I'd never done anything like that one before. So, and always happy to help out these teachers. And of course, one of the nice thing about this is if they decide they needed a taller rod, we can take the bottom one and just get a longer one and screw it in, and it would be so it's easy to be made bigger if they ever needed it. But this is for kindergarten. They don't need one that's too tall.
Yeah. Nice. I like the idea.
Very cool. I think it's cool they're teaching them what a maypole is.
Yeah. Well, the person, the teacher was Spanish. So she was trying to describe to me what this was. And she didn't know the English name for it. So once she drew it out, I said, that looks like a maypole. And then she kind of confirmed that, oh, okay, that's what it is. So yeah, we had a little bit of a communication. So I get to deliver that Monday. So, or she's coming to pick it up Monday. So, but it's good. When I do projects like this for them, I just bill them for the materials. And this did not take very long to make. That's a very simple turning.
Yeah.
Fun.
And it was fun.
Very cool. Very cool.
I was trying to figure out how you were able to turn 4 feet so straight.
You had to go out and buy a new lathe?
Well, I don't have the extension. Yeah, that would have been a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go there.
Okay, Terry.
Okay, unmute myself. So this basically started out as my attempt to do a bird's mouth vase out of poplar. And I wanted to do something with the rim, so I burned it first and didn't like it. So I basically sanded it back down, and then I decided to dye the whole thing. So the inside is purple and the rim is black, and then the outside's a combination of yellow, orange, red, and purple. And this
Love it.
wood was a little bit soft, so it took, I did an oil finish on it, and it took, instead of 1 or 2 coats, which normally happens, I think I put about 7 or 8 coats of oil on here until it actually was a uniform shine, and not some places that were dull and some places that were shiny.
What kind of oil, when you
It'll
say
work.
oil, Terry?
I was using the Minwax antique oil.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I put a coat of that on, let it sit for 5 minutes or so, and if there's any excess, I'll wipe it off and then let it cure for 12 to 24 hours and then do another coat. And I'll use a little bit of the either steel wool, which I've kind of gone away from, or that gray 3M stuff to kind of smooth it out a little bit between coats.
Mm-hmm. I like the coloring on the outside of it, especially. Looks great with that black
Great with the
rim,
black
too.
rim, because
Yeah.
it's like a fire effect to the burnt rim.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. Well, that's what I started out, and I actually burned the rim, but it didn't come out very uniform. It was, it was kind of blotchy, and some places burned down a little bit because the wood was maybe a little bit punky. And so I ended up just mostly leveling it out and using a black dye.
No. You might try using a sealer on it first the next time. And it may not take so many coats for you. And it also, as Norm was saying earlier, it evens it out, across the grain.
Yeah, I can't remember. I may have used a cellulose sanding sealer on this, but no matter what I put on this thing, it just sucked it up like crazy.
After the dye, right? You seal after the dye?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice piece, Terry. Anyway.
Oh, thank
Very
you.
nice.
Oh, and this was kind of I guess this was my personal challenge thing, if we were going to do a personal challenge. So like many of you, I visited, or I bought wood from Mike.
Oh. Sorry, I didn't realize this was Mike Smith's piece. We put all the other Mike Smith pieces at the end. Apologies.
Okay. Do you want me to wait and come back to it, or what?
No, go ahead. I would go ahead because it's
okay. And in any case, I bought stuff from Mike at the meetings, but then one time pre-COVID, Preston and I actually drove out to his place, and we selected a lot of pieces of wood, bought some wood from him, and then I told him that I was kind of a novice and I wanted some inexpensive stuff to work on, kind of practice. And so he kind of pointed us at his burn pile and said, you can have anything in there, which is cutoffs and, all kinds of stuff. And so we hauled out a number of pieces of cherry, and this one, which he said was Bradford Pear. And I got several pieces of this Bradford Pear that Mike just gave us, right? And so it has some spalting in it, both kind of black spalting and then the white stuff. The black's not so bad, but the white stuff really just, this is not smooth because the white stuff just comes out. It basically kind of falls out. And I filled some of it with black epoxy. But these are a couple bowls that, I made. They're probably in the neighborhood of about 6 inches in diameter and anywhere from 3 to 3.5 inches tall. And I probably have 30 more pieces of wood that, I bought or Mike
Wow.
gave me to continue working on. So probably 30 more projects, with Mike's wood in the future.
I actually thought that when I saw the wood looks darker than Bradford Pear, I thought, but maybe
Well,
I thought,
that was the thing I thought too, because Bradford Pear is usually pretty light in
Yeah.
color, and this looks it doesn't quite look like cherry, but it looks a little bit like cherry. But
yeah,
Mike was very insistent that it was Bradford Pear, so I trust Mike. I mean, I haven't
Yeah,
seen any other
absolutely.
wood that
Absolutely.
kind of has this color, but
yeah.
The green and figure definitely look like Bradford.
yeah.
Well, they look great anyways, whatever kind of wood it is. I mean,
Yeah,
they
and I
look
made,
good.
some of this other some Bradford Pear, the same thing I got from him with less spalting, especially less white spalting. I did a pair of salt and pepper mills for my daughter for Christmas this year out of that, and they really look nice.
Well, they're great. They
Well-
keep them coming.
Thanks.
All right, John,
Well, yeah,
our long distance friend.
yeah. I actually got this piece of wood from the storage facility in Raleigh when you guys were selling out of there. I think it came from Mike, but it was not labeled. And it was just a big hunk of brown wood. And I thought, and it was very heavy. And I thought, well, I'll take it and give it a try. I still, to this day, don't know what kind of wood it is. It looked a little like, yeah, it looked like walnut, but it's way heavier, way more dense, and it turns like concrete. I mean, it was. I had to have very, very sharp tools to turn this ball.
Hey, John,
yeah.
the wood is East Indian rosewood.
Is it East Indian rosewood?
Yeah, it's really nice stuff to turn. I had bought a number of pieces from Mike. If you notice on the left side of the picture there, the little stain spots, the round stain spots that it gets.
Right.
I think that rosewood is the only thing I've ever known, and it all it's all through it. It's lovely stuff.
Yeah, it was beautiful wood. I really enjoyed making it, but like I said, it was really, really hard. I thought it was probably a rosewood of some type, and that makes sense that it's East Indian. And then the edge, I just did a wide rim on it, and I had these, there's so many precious stones that my wife had picked up at one of the national parks years ago when I was working in the parks for Eastman Kodak. And so they were selling them in the camp store or something, a little bag of them. And I just always thought they were cool. They were real pretty and colorful and everything, but I had no use for them for the last 40 years. And then I thought, oh, this is a perfect case or a perfect opportunity to use some of those. So I just hollowed out the rim a little bit. It's about a 1/2 inch deep. Put those in there and then poured clear epoxy over the top of them. And then after the epoxy dried, then I cleaned up the rim a little bit on the lathe. But I thought it came out okay.
Yeah, looks fantastic. That wood is fantastic.
Yeah,
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love your rim treatment. That really
Yeah.
works well.
Thank you.
It wouldn't be so heavy if you took the rocks out of it.
I really like the swirling. That might even have been a crotch piece, looking how it is going.
Yeah, I was going to make the same comment, Preston. I really love that figure in that one side there.
Yep.
So is the bowl thickness, is it just thick on the rim, John, and then the bottom of it's thinner, or is it?
No, it's thick all the way through.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll bet you that feels really good though. I mean, really like sturdy,
Yeah,
being like
it's a nice, it has a nice solid feel to it.
Yeah.
I like it. I'll have to sign the bottom of it someday, but I haven't done that yet.
That's a smart way to do it. Very good.
Okay, this piece, the one on the left, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that before, but it was a bud vase. I wanted to make a really tall bud vase, so that's 18 inches tall. And it was actually kind of a bear to make. It's not all hollowed out in the bottom, but it's partly hollowed out, mostly with Forstner bit. But anyway, although I like the picture okay, I didn't really ever like the base. I thought it was too chunky at the bottom. I thought the neck was too fat, and the top is, I didn't like the bulbous top that I had on it. So it's been sitting around my shop for a long time. Finally, I thought maybe I can put it back on the lathe and do something with it. So I did, and I reshaped the bottom, as you can see, quite dramatically, and then put a little detail where the neck joins the bottom, and also slimmed out the neck quite a bit. And then I decided to carve it and color it. And so it's colored with golden fluid acrylics, which I love. I don't know if you guys have used the golden paints, but the golden fluid acrylics are really fun to combine. The blue, I wrote it down, it's a combination of turquoise, titanium white, and interference blue that makes up the blue on that. And then the grapes were blue, red, and titanium white. So I just play around with the colors a lot till I get something that I kind of like. And the grapes are hand painted, or at least the ones that join up against the blue have to be kind of careful. But
did you paint the blue first and then the red?
I did. I painted the blue, the entire thing blue. And then I thought, you know what, I need some, well, first of all, there was some small cracks in the thing and I wanted to cover those up. And I thought, well, maybe I'll carve it.
Opportunities.
Yeah.
Yep. So then I started carving it, and I was first going to do, those little grapes throughout the entire piece. And then as I did it, I thought, you know what, it kind of looks like a grapevine there. So maybe I'll stop. And that's what I did.
Looks great.
Yeah.
First, my 2 cents. I'm blown away. I will admit, I went ahead on the Facebook page and looked ahead, and this caught my eye like immediately. It's incredible. The color combinations, the form is awesome. I'm just blown away by it. And then I'm going to try and copy it and pretend like it's mine. Anyways, how did you do the carving? Was that like a saber tooth or?
Yes, it was just the one little round saber tooth bits and a micromotor.
Yeah.
So that was pretty simple to carve, actually, just a little time consuming to do.
And how did you avoid that the purple bled into the blue?
I'm sorry, Seven?
How did you avoid that the purple paint bled into the blue?
Well, the blue was already on there and totally dry. And then everywhere you see purple used to be blue. I mean, I carved into the blue, and then I painted over all of that carving. But when I got down to the grapes that were, at the border of the blue, then it was just a small paintbrush that let me get in there.
And how did you recheck it?
With an expansion jaw. I forget what they're called, the longer one. Anybody remember?
Cole's jaw?
No, they weren't Cole's jaws. They were, the longer 4-jaw thing that you can stick into
Like
a hole.
Like the pin jaw?
Pin jaw.
Like a pin jaw. Yes, that's what it is, pin jaw. And then just expanded it. And then on the other end, I had one of those cones on the tailstock to hold the hole in the other end.
Well, I would have really liked the first piece, but gosh, you did improve it. That's pretty incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think it's an improvement. My wife didn't never like the first piece either, so I don't know. I'll have to ask her about this.
I would have been extremely proud of the first piece and then more than thrilled with the second piece. That thing's just amazing.
Yeah, I definitely like the shape that you redid it on the second one.
One thing I like, if you do use the golden paints, those interference paints, they create an opalescent effect, and they also, the color will flip. Now, in this dark color, it doesn't flip too much, but that's what the interference paint is for. As you look at the paint from a different angle, the color flips, it changes a little bit. But on the darker tones, it creates this wonderful opalescent effect. So if you haven't ever tried that, try that. Just put a few drops of the opalescent, of the interference paint in, and you get that nice effect.
Hey, John, how does it change when you turn the light bulb on? Like it would make it glow more.
It would, I didn't have, as you can see, there's no wire in the picture because I hadn't wired it yet. So I was going to do that. I just didn't have time. And I would love to retake the picture with the bulb actually on inside the lampshade. But right now there's no bulb in there.
John, as you work with that opalescent and pearlescent paint, consider your background. If you take a piece of flat wood and paint 1/2 white and 1/2 black, and then put that pearlescent blue over it, you'll get two very, very different phenomenon as you look at it and as you roll it.
Yeah. Yes. Those paints are really fun to play with. You can get all kinds of effects from them, and I like mixing different colors. Straight up, some of the colors are really strange out of the can, or out of the little bottle, but you start mixing them together. I love the blues that I can get.
So John, do you think your skills have advanced and that's why you didn't like that first piece and you've moved to the second one?
No, I think I sometimes I'm over influenced when my wife says, "Ooh, I hate that."
You get that too, like the challenge accepted. Okay, I'll show you. Yeah.
Mike, I agree with your earlier comment that you're not a very good wood turner.
No, definitely not. But this doesn't compare to what John produced. That's pretty cool. You guys have seen my work before. Not a whole lot to explain there. 14.5 diameter, about 1.5 inches tall. It came from a solid piece of maple slab that was 8/4, and then just designed that pattern. And I was into greens at the time, so it's actually one solid color green, but the light affects it. And I broke all the rules. You guys were talking about, transitional backgrounds and all that. I've just used a piece of white paper, but I probably need to break down and buy the transitional background and see if I can get better pictures out of it. And then, like we talked about before, left the centerpiece solid wood, just so people know that it's actually wood, and then finished it with some rattle can lacquer.
Nice.
Just beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah, and as far as the background for me, anyways, Michael, to me, if the background doesn't take my eye away from the piece, it's fine, and it doesn't take my eye away from the piece. So, I think it's fine.
My photography is way better after watching John's demo. I will concede to that 100 times over. He used to have 2 and 3 lights pointed at it and all these different light sources, and then we saw John's demo and I was like, well, duh. So it has gotten better, but I haven't coughed up the new background yet.
Need to.
Yeah, agreed. And on the previous shot, I couldn't tell whether it was a going in bowl or out, or it's really optical.
Yeah. So that 1.5 inches in the thickness, it is a gradual. I wouldn't call it a bowl because it's not really quite deep enough to be a bowl, but I don't know if I'd call it a platter because it's not super flat. So it's a bladder. How about that? We'll call it a
It's a
bladder.
dish.
Oh yeah, dish. That's a good.
A saucer.
Salsa.
It's a
Yeah,
saucer.
this is
Yeah.
for a big, huge cup of coffee.
I really like that on the inside, leaving that 1.5 of wood. That's good.
I turned one, I may have to bring it for the next show and tell. I turned one last weekend and I got so thin on the beads, not intentional, it wasn't like I was trying to show off, that the whole thing flexed on the lathe like a slinky. And when you hold it up to the light, you could see a real like pin lights. If I had gone not even a millimeter more on one of the beads, it would have blown apart.
Did you purposely have your pattern pick up the grain lines from that center?
No, I just picked out the pattern and then chucked up this piece of wood and then went from there.
I like how those 3 major lines flow right into the curvature of your pattern.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. You're right. Well, I'm going to pretend like I did that on purpose. Good
Hey,
point.
dummy.
Nice.
Thanks. Another one, this one's, I've been trying to play around with the smaller basket illusions so I can actually produce, because we've got that art exposure coming up and I'm really short on inventory. So I was trying to produce a bunch of smaller pieces, even though they do take a long time. It doesn't take as long as a 14-inch diameter piece. So this is, these are some segmented maple, hard maple pieces, little 5-inch diameter, 3 5/8 tall. I think those are I think that's the 1/8 bead. Yeah, I did 1/8 bead on those. And this one's very similar to that peacock one you guys have seen before. I keep going back to that pattern and just try different variations. And if you flip to the next one, which everybody always says, but I try to make it look like a bloom, like a flower bloom, like all the petals coming in towards the center. So that was the intent of that pattern. The other peacock one, those petals actually go the other way. So it's coming from the top down, and I did it reverse. Just see if I could get like a flower bloom pattern going.
Okay,
Sunflower would be a great
segmenting
pattern to
natural
start
wood
with.
part, that's just showing off. I mean,
Oh, the natural wood, I love seeing that.
yeah, segmenting it, it's just showing off.
I was gonna say a sunflower face would be a really interesting pattern to go from too, if you haven't done that already.
I did that. I think we had that at the last show and tell, the big sunflower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Melody, whatever.
No. It just didn't. Now let me write down that it didn't impress Alan. Okay, I got it. Next time.
Oh,
Yeah.
the other thing was, hold it. The other thing was, if any of you guys say that your wife hates it, sell it and then tell her what the sale price was.
No. You don't ever tell them the sale price. You tell them it sells for half of what it paid for, or half of what you charge for it.
Yeah,
It could cut both ways. Okay.
yeah.
That is lovely.
Thanks a lot, Norm, for putting me right after Mike.
What are you talking about? That thing's awesome.
Yeah, come on.
Somebody's got to go.
Yeah, give me a break here, right? So this was a really gnarly piece of cedar. And I didn't expect the rim to look like that, but I didn't want to flatten it out to where a lot of those swirling grains, like you can see in the top left, there were just like a wave or something. So of course, the picture doesn't do it justice since I didn't have it in my Glamorous Shot studio, just in the shop. But I'm going to leave the rim just like that. And I really got lucky on the bottom because I forgot that big void was on the bottom, and it didn't go through it. I guess somebody was looking out after me, but there's even more swirls on this side. You can see there. So it has friction polish on it now that I think Terry made for me, and I'm going to put some real finish on it and then put it on the the buffing wheel.
Oh, looks great, man. I love how you left the natural edge. I love that void on the bottom. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Cedar is so beautiful. I always find it so beautiful when you turn it, that purplish color, but then it turns brown. And I always get disappointed, about 6 months later, I look at it, it's like, darn, I wish I think it'd stay the same color.
Right.
Haven't figured that out yet.
Has anyone tried a light red or purple dye on cedar to just give it a little oomph that might persist?
I haven't tried that. I haven't tried
interesting.
dyeing it.
Yeah.
I
Sort of
guess
like
it'd be the
gray.
challenge would be keeping it out of the white, sapwood or whatever.
Yeah.
If you did that, it'd be a little bit of a challenge.
It's
I
just
haven't-
a contrast.
I haven't found anything that will stop that from going from red to brown. And, I've tried a whole lot of different chemistries. Nothing seems to work.
Yeah, I have too. I even bought some UV lacquer and tried it, and it works better, but after 6 months, if it's out in the any type of light, I even have a piece that I put in a black in a bag, and put it away in a drawer, and same is still, it must be oxidation more than UV even that does it. Something does it and changes it brown.
It's
Yeah.
exactly oxidation.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the color of the wood is more red. This is a cherry root ball, I think, and it's got a lot of bark inclusions. Where I put the epoxy there on the bottom left, you can see a little of the white spongy wood that's I didn't carve away first, and I had to put a lot of super glue on it. And again, this has got friction polish on it and ready to start in earnest on the inside in the next picture. And then this has so many little voids in it and cracks. You can even see the white dots in the epoxy where I didn't have a pressure pot. So I was just lucky that it didn't have more bubbles in it. But I'm going to put this on the back on the lathe and go ahead and sand the inside out. And in a future event, I'll put that out. It would be a major transformation.
Did you, is that the black CA? in those
Yes, it
voids?
is. Right.
Okay, yeah. Very cool.
Want to mention, Preston, I noticed that you are on Instagram. You cut out the bottom of your G-Forge so you can now burn deep bowls.
Yeah, I was really sweating that.
That was impressive. That's a good idea.
Yeah. It only allows you to do 1.5 inches without cutting the bottom out. I did have to get some new safety goggles that have that nanometer number where I can be in the same room with it running now because it's reflecting everywhere.
That's great.
But yeah, assuming it keeps working, I'm going to really enjoy it. I might even raise it up more with 2x4s or something like that.
Yeah, you raise it with the job.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
All right. So these are some podlets that, if you remember last June, Greg Galagos did a demo for us on podlets. So I've made quite a few of these, maybe even 100 of them by now. But these I turned one day, and after when I turn them, I have a bucket of water and I stick them in the bucket of water and go turn another one. And then, after so many of them, then I take them out and after, an hour or two, I take them out and heat them up, in the microwave to bend and put the curvature in it. But I threw these in a bucket and forgot them. And I came back the next day and they were all, fungus had gotten in them and it had turned all grayish, kind of blackish gray, and they looked really poorly to me. I didn't like them at all. So I set them aside and then I thought about it. I said, oh, I'm going to try to put some dye to it. So I did. And when I did it, I didn't know which colors I wanted to use. So I decided I'd do each one a little different just to see how they all came out. It's kind of an experiment. And I was pretty happy with them coming out. They really look fantastic in the sunlight. That's why I took the photo out in the direct sunlight. And then, the backside photos, you can see some of the light shining through, and they're fairly thin. But even you can see the blue ones, not much light comes through, but the yellow ones, it still doesn't block the light very much, and it comes through pretty well on it. So, and I don't remember what kind of wood this is. Something off the, I don't remember where I got it from, off the side of the road someplace, I guess. Yeah, and then I sprayed it with Krylon 1311 matte finish afterwards to try to seal that in and so forth. I will tell you this, that whatever wood this is now, they're very delicate. I knocked one off the table and hit the carpet and broke in half. And I had another one in the shop that I knocked off. No, I didn't knock it. I shook it a little bit because it had dust on it, which was a mistake, and it snapped right in two on me. So if you make these things, they seem, fairly good when you first do it because the wood's still green and flexible, but after they dry out for a few months, they get pretty fragile. So you got to be kind of careful with them on that. So.
Ed, what did you do to cut? Did you use milk paints or did you use dyes to color those?
Dyes. Yeah, I use dyes, John. Yep. So I put on the stem, some of them were just green, but what I liked better was I put the yellow base on it first, and then I put green dye over the top of it. And it really, it made the color much more vivid. You can see the one on the left there right now is a little bit darker green, and it's because that's just green. I didn't put the base yellow underneath it. So, yeah.
I think it might work to, I've seen dispensers, spray dispensers of CA glue. Once it's all finished, to spray just the stems with something like that, or paint them.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you put like CA on the stems, it would stiffen them up. I'm not sure.
More
about that.
Man, make it
Or
most
just
brittle,
don't touch
maybe, who knows?
Yeah, I think there's just something you put up on the shelf and look at, and that's pretty much it.
So Ted, maybe I missed this, but what is the wood?
I don't know what it is, Mark. I don't remember what it is.
I'm just surprised that they would be fragile. Yeah, I would have thought they would have been pretty tough.
Yeah, well, some of them also, some of the pith, sometimes they like borderline the pith, wasn't far enough away from it. Yeah, even though you can see they're offset, I offset some of them as well, which I've made some of these completely offset to get rid of the pith, and they actually come out pretty cool if you get them to bend properly. But I have some that they just didn't bend that well, and so they're lopsided. Then they tip over because there's not enough base to them. So I've been learning a lot on these.
There's something called museum wax, I think, and it's a pasty wax that you get in a little tin, and if you put just a little bit of a dab on the bottom of these really light things, when you put it down on the shelf, it kind of sticks, so they don't tip over as easily.
Okay. Well, I thought about putting a little weight in the bottom of it, but these are not too bad, but I have other ones that are really small diameter, the base, and I have problems with those standing up. Thanks for the advice, though. Yeah, so the next one, so there's two. So I decided after I did those flowers that I turned in, just stuff that I did with dyes this week. And so the one on the left is, as you can see, is a tea candle. And it's made out of crepe myrtle. And of course, after I turned it, it's pretty, crepe myrtle is just kind of plain, there's not much to it. And sometimes that's okay. And I made some pieces where I leave some inclusions in it. It looks okay, but I wasn't happy with this one. So I did the same kind of thing. I actually dyed this black first. So it was completely black. And then I sanded that back twice with black. And then I put yellow on it and then green on top of that. And then I dyed the rim a second time or third time, maybe it was as well, on the top. So it's just nice black rim on that.
What are the dimensions of these?
Well, that tea candle holder is about pretty close to a foot, probably 10 inches tall. And what is it? At the top there is probably 1 3/4 inches, something like that, a little bit more. And the bottom is probably 2 1/4 inches big around.
I love that shade of green.
Yeah, it's pretty, I liked it a lot. It looks a lot better, of course. But the sunlight does help bring it out a little bit, but it looks better, of course, when you hold it in your hand. The one on the right is a piece of spalted maple. And it's, I got it from my neighbors across the street. Had some of them fall down or something. And I put it on the lathe and started turning it. It was so punky. And I thought, oh, this is total waste of time. But anyways, I turned the form on it and stuff, and I set it aside, and then I brought it back out. So I turned about a month ago, I guess it was, brought it back out, and I was able to actually get it fairly smooth. The top of it, as you can see, the end grain, it was just really torn out. And but I was able with sharpen up my tools really well, and I was able to get it smoothed out pretty much on there. But you could still kind of see the differences in the wood, so I decided to dye this one as well. And this one, though, I didn't put any base down or anything, the black first and sand it off because it's so punky. I didn't think it looked very, very good, because the punkiness would really absorb that first layer of dye and wouldn't be able to get it out of there. It would look splotchy, afterwards. So this just has, it's actually a kind of a navy blue dye on it. And once it dries, it turns this kind of electric blue, on it, which is, I think, pretty cool. And there's no finish on this, and I'm not sure if I'm going to put a finish on it. I haven't decided yet, because I know as soon as I put a finish on it, it's going to darken up, and I really like this electric blue color.
Great, Ted.
Thank you.
I'm a sucker for green.
Wow. Yeah. I guess I'm really thrilled to say that I am now a commissioned artist. Totally go trip here. My daughter-in-law's got this tall, thin cabinet in her powder room. The bottom holds 3 rolls of toilet paper stacked high behind a little door. And there's a 6x6x6 cubby at the top. I gave her and my son a Banksia pod goblet years ago. She said, turn me something out of a Banksia pod to put in that little cubby. So not only am I a commissioned artist, it's going in a bathroom where it belongs. Turn the stem part, the top, the leaves, turned a couple of egg shapes, split them in half on the bandsaw, which was easier said than done, in a V block with glued in supports. To glue it up, Buy me the next picture, Norm. I wanted to hollow those things out a little bit. And for lack of better, what you're looking at there is some urethane wine bottle stoppers that I drilled through and put screws in to match the chuck in the or the holes in the jaws of the chuck. I actually made those to go on the Coles jaws to hold bowls that weren't exactly the right shape for those little pegs they give you. But that held the leaves and let me hollow them out to take some weight out of it. Back me up on, Norm. Took a couple of jigs to hold everything still while the epoxy set, and to stop it from running, I'm using the 45-minute system 3. Let it sit for about 30, then put a bunch of brass filings in it to thicken it up real good, and glued it up that way, and then put, hey, probably 5 coats, maybe 6 coats of lacquer on top of 2 coats of aerosol shellac to try to get it all sealed up.
Very creative.
Yeah.
It is very cool. I was actually sent a picture to my wife and said, I think your dad wants one of these.
Very clever too. It's really
Great idea, Jeff.
Thank you. I'm real happy with the background that I use for the photography. That's a brand spanking new gray towel from Costco for only $4.95.
Yeah, it's pretty innovative.
Yes.
What, the towel?
The jaws that your jaws that you use there, and that they seem like they're taller than you need. I mean, it seems like you have be a lot in your way to get at your piece there. Do you have trouble with that, or is it okay?
Well, you know, like they tell you, don't stick anything organic on the other side of the tool rest. This was one of those occasions where you damn for sure don't stick anything on the other side of the tool rest. And I used a Jimmy Clue's Mate 1 and had it hanging pretty far out over the tool rest, and was real darn careful and managed to take a bunch of the meat out of those things without making a mess. But it was one of the more unnerving things I've done in a while.
Couldn't you
Might be
shimmy
a
it a
good
little
time
bit
to
more
make
towards?
might be a good time to make a set of those of different lengths.
Couldn't you have shimmied the piece closer to the end? You know, gripped it near the
Trying
tip?
to get something that is not exactly symmetric to hold still when you're going to push into it. I liked it wedged flat into the little hole in the bottom of the chuck. So it sat real still. And, you know, after listening to your lessons on how to use that clues tool with a little bubble level on it, this technique worked quite nicely.
Cool.
You see a lot of weird stuff with Banksia pods. This is definitely the coolest that I've ever seen.
Well, thank you.
Very unique.
Very nice finish too. I really like that finish.
Many coats of lacquer.
Much more patience than I have, but beautiful.
Okay, I guess that's me. Good evening, guys. So this is an ash platter, as you can see. So this was some wood that I got this about 3 or 4 months ago, the logs, and I had cut them into bowl blanks. This one actually had sat in the plastic bag, actually outside the shop for a few months. So when I picked it up to see, you know, what was next on the agenda here, I found it to be a little bit slimy and a little bit green on the edges. because it was in the plastic, but still the nice thing is that it was still green wood, which is what I like to start with. So this was, I think, this isn't the pith, but it was next to the pith. So it has this big bark inclusion and that very large branch coming out of it. So I would normally do a platter, twice turned. Looking at this, it was like, okay, this is crazy. No matter what I do, it's gonna either bow like a potato chip or crack horribly. So I decided to do just a turn it green, start to finish. So I like it. It is certainly very potato chippy and continues to get more that way, but yeah, I like it. Yeah, you can see it's still moving a little bit. So I did it, like I said, start to finish green, finished it with shellac and then some paste wax over it. Because I knew it was going to warp, I turned, instead of turning a foot on it, I just have the bottom round, I think, which works well because it doesn't set flat at all.
It won't.
Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, that's
Looks great.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like letting those natural warpings like that on thin pieces. I've got a few of them, but they don't sit flat afterwards, that's for sure.
But I'll tell you, in a
Right.
stack of nicely turned pieces, people will pick that one up every time.
Yeah.
So how do you put it back on the lathe with a vacuum truck to sand it, or how do you do that once it's warped?
Well, so I don't. Preston, what I do is the inside is basically the finish turning is done on the inside first, and that is sanded. The inside is sanded and finished, and then I just press it against a vacuum chuck with the tailstock to do to finish the backside and do all the sanding. And I do the same thing. Then I just sand it and shellac it and give it some wax, and that's it. There wasn't, because of that big bark inclusion, the vacuum chuck wouldn't work anyway. It's just not going to seal against it. So I did just use it, on a pressure chuck, and just, you kind of cut that center nub where the tailstock is pushing, kind of make an apple core out of it, and then just kind of see how gutsy you are. And so I turned that down to less than 1/4 of an inch, and then just snapped it off and cleaned it up. And that was the bottom.
Ash will let you get away with that.
What's that?
Ash would let you get away with that 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
No, all woods would.
No, and you kind of have to just feel it and see what seems stable. And I did want to comment about, so my photography here, I don't think it was the best choice for this piece, but it was what was set up in the shop, and so that's what I did. I think really a piece like this is better shown sort of in situ, so kind of in a table setting, and if there's some flowers or some fruits put on it, I think that would be really nice for this, and I'm going to work on that for the future.
That pattern in the pith, is that a duck or a dachshund? Yeah.
It's a ducks.
I saw a frog.
Okay.
I see a dragon head.
A bunny.
Okay. You want
I
to
see a
name
pith.
items, but yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, so a few months back, a friend
Wow.
gave me a few smaller maple burls, which I was very grateful for. Big reason is that I didn't pay for the burls. Well, I mean, that being, there's this real problem that we have, that if we go spend $40 or $50 or whatever it is on a piece of wood, and it's a burl, then we say, oh, this is special wood. So I have to do something special with this, which means then we just get, I don't know, it makes you weird, right? And, you know, I've had pieces of wood like that I just let them sit on the shelf then, because I say, well, maybe I'm not worthy yet to do something out of this. But if somebody
It's
gives it
waiting
to
for
me-
inspiration. That's what you're doing.
right, or waiting for the talent or whatever it is. But in this case, yeah, he just said, here, have these. And so, you know, I felt more free to experiment with the burls. I made 2 small bowls, and then this is one of the 2 hollow forms that I did. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great fun to do. And I like the way this one turned out. I like I like having some pins in there, but a lot of solid wood. And then of course the voids are nice.
I think leaving those voids, especially with that flow in there, that looks awesome, Mark.
Thank
I
you. And
agree.
you know, the voids are great because you can really check that that interior profile. You know, I mean, that's part of it for me. I can, you know, you could do it with the gauges and stuff, but it's just really nice to be able to peek in there and see what's going on.
Plus, you can see it while you're turning. You know where your tools are at.
Right, you can see the tool in there. You can see the wood coming out of it. Yeah. So,
But the best part is the shavings eject.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's right. You don't have to
Self-ejecting
blow
shaving.
'em out.
yeah.
Exactly.
Mark, is that a little bit of a flare on the bottom when it comes down the sides to the
Tiny bit.
bottom?
Way
yeah,
down the bottom.
slightly. Mhm.
Yeah, I like that.
Just at the foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the burl caps that you left those in there naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Thanks, Preston.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's gorgeous to me too. It looks like almost something you would find in some archaeological dig
Yeah.
that it's
Museum
just-
piece.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the jar form I really like, and you know, that partly came just from as I was kind of turning away the junk from the burl and just trying to see what shape was starting to emerge. I was really liking this. You know, like having that mouth on there, that rim. I think that works well.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark,
And again, 2 lines, you know, that go through, you know, that are interrupted, that go through the various textures, I think gives it some interest. I hope.
Well, the lines for me accentuate, you know, the break in your curve and then the lip also. So it all kind of flows for me.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks.
Mark, it's a beautiful piece. I really like the piece. I'm just going to ask you out of curiosity though, what was your light source when you took?
Oh, these pictures, 2 hard lights, hot lights.
Hot
So,
lights?
yeah.
Were they filtered by anything? Did you have any, did you have them in a soft box or have any sort of filtration in front of the light?
No, those are completely hard. They're Fresnel lights with barn doors on them, and that's all.
Oh, okay. The reason I ask, I think it would, I find that shadow very harsh. You know, it's almost jet black, and you could soften that just by putting some diffusion in front of those, you know, attach some infusion in front of those barn doors. It would soften it up, and then maybe a little reflector on the right-hand side to bounce a little light back into the shadow side. But you know,
Yeah, so I did have a fill light. You can see a soft shadow over there on the left, but yeah, so playing around with the ratios there, and like I think that I like some of the drama you can get from the hot lights, but for a lot of these things, I need to go with something softer. Yeah, I mean, I do have a couple soft boxes and things like that. Also, I need to get a new background because as Stefan asked, I think last month, yes, the little staining from the
you just breathe on them and they get marked up.
Yeah, and you can't clean it. I've tried the various things and it's just no good anymore.
So the lighting is obviously something subjective and emotional. And as much as I admire John, I actually also like this very harsh, dark shadow. It gives it some drama and focuses me on the light of the vessel. So I like that actually.
Yeah, yeah.
I do too, but I think your last comment would have made it, I've seen it make a big difference. Just having a reflector to send some of that light back to the dark side. You'd still get that dramatic shadow, but you'd see a little bit more of the dark side of the moon.
Absolutely. I agree.
Actually, given the texture of the wood, those little spots and stains almost make the surface under it a little bit wood-like. So it doesn't detract from my experience. It's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Nice piece.
Thanks.
I love that picture.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, that one sings.
Shows all the texture of the burl.
Yeah.
The drama of the light really works on that one for sure.
Yeah.
Hard light does give you that.
Right, so the last of the regular ones is me. I have not been doing a lot of turning lately, but I do have some old project kits to get worked out. So I spent a few days making kaleidoscopes. I find if you're at a booth, it's always good to have one of these around because they're a conversation piece at the very least, and it's something to entertain the little kids who want to pick up the bowls. Oh yeah, the interesting thing here is the little stand. So I had these, we threw out this old couch years ago and they had these red square legs. And I just thought, as I was taking it apart, I saw screws on them. And I said, I want to see what's under there. And I just put them on the shelf and I mounted it on the screw and I turned them one day and I went, oh, it's not really interesting there, but it's a nice piece of wood for something. So I left them aside. And as I was making the eggs, I remembered that I actually lost one of those eggs because it fell off the shelf. It tumbled over. That lens doesn't hold them very well. So I said, this would make a great little stand for them. So I just bore it out to the dimension that'll sit, basically that lens end will sit inside the hole and it won't tip over very easily. No idea what the wood is.
Very nice.
And with that, we're going to move on to some of the Mike Smith stuff that was identified. And even though he's not here, Mike, excuse me, there we go. Jim Duxbury sent along this nice little testimonial with a photo, and I just figured the text would stand on its own. Can you read, Ted, you want to read that?
Yep. Mike Smith and I had only occasional contact with each other over the many years, and I found him to be fairly quiet person, but I really liked him. I think he liked me too, because every time he introduced me, he gave me such a glowing introduction that I would have difficulty living up to it. He was a wealth of information on anything wood-wise and had helped me many times. Seemed to so easy for him. The answers are right on the head. I often bought special pieces of different kinds of woods from Mike. When we met at shows, he would direct me to a kinds of wood he thought I would be interested in. The piece pictured is just one example. It's a 7 by 17 by 3 inch of extremely well-figured maple. The figure is so concentrated that these blocks are often cut in thin slabs for book-matched guitar backs and things like that. It cost me $80. By far the most expensive block of wood I've ever owned. But he saved it special, and I know someday I will have that special project someday. So far it has come close to a couple times, but not quite. A special wood like a special person. When they are gone, there ain't no more. God bless Mike Smith, Jim Duxbury. Very nice.
We're not supposed to cry during the show and tell, just
Yeah, I know. It's a really
for what it's
nice
worth.
write-up.
That was really nice.
Those are really nice pieces as well.
That quilt, that's insane. And Jim doesn't do anything special with his photography. That's that wood shining that.
Yeah.
Same towel. Huh?
Looks like he got the same
Yeah.
I used.
Yeah, Jeff, you and what do you call it? Jim shop at the same Costco. That's amazing.
He just uses his carpet on his floor.
So
I
I
wonder if
had
you could
not
use
realized
this.
this until you did the Mike Smith video last month, but I had hired Mike Smith and his crew to bring in his portable sawmill. At that point, 1996, he was running 2 portable sawmills. I lost a lot of oak and ash trees in Hurricane Fran, and I brought in the sawmill and he cut it up. And I remember when I asked them the crew to give me quarter sawn wood for the white oak, and most of the crew didn't know it, but the crew boss knew how to do that, and it's been great wood. And I've since had it kiln dried in New Bern, and I'm still paying Jimmy's Minis $100 a month to store a lot of that wood. I'm trying to work through it, but Jimmy will get my $100 for a few years more till I work through it. But he did a great job with the sawmill.
Oh, thanks for that, Greg.
These are images that I submitted, and several of you may know and have been there. Mike offered some workshops at his place in Bailey, North Carolina, which is east of here towards Rocky Mount. And he would have 3 big trunks of some wood that were uncut initially. And then he had a portable sawmill. In this case, it was not his, but it was brought in. And then we saw these 3 logs, and we spent morning, early afternoon together. And it was just fun. It was in the autumn, awesome autumn weather, both times that I went in eastern North Carolina, very rural. And then this fascination of the wood once it's cut open to see what's inside. And he had picked very nice woods. This is an American Hollywood, which was spalted. Just like a Christmas gift. It opens up and you wonder what's inside, as if you were a kid. And Mike explained things, and it was just nice. He invited us to his property. One of the times we did this on his property, another time somewhere else, and then afterwards we went to his property. Then here on the right lower corner image, he showed some of us who remained after the sawing how he cuts this into blocks, how he waxes it, and just a general conversation about wood and salvage, creating the blocks that he then sold at shows. It was also an interesting piece of property. He had a lot of wood that he had collected in various sheds and barns, open spaces just with a roof on top. It was just fun to see, be out in the autumn weather in North Carolina, see the trees cut open, and then just talk about wood. So I'm thankful for those events, and I miss those. And then the next image shows what I made out of. So once the holly was cut, there was a cutoff that he wasn't going to use, but he cut it into a slab for me and gave it to me. I don't think I paid for it, or maybe I did, but it wasn't much, as you said earlier. And I made this bowl. This was early on in my wood turning. I've been turning for 2 years or so. And I have an acquaintance in Seattle who saw this picture, and he loved this pale wood, and he bought it, and he sent it as a gift to his brother in New York. So I was really proud. Number one, I liked the piece, and number two, I was really proud to have a piece that I turned in New York City. So I thought I had it made.
Bravo for you.
Yeah. Thanks for the photos too from their visit with Mike Smith and all your comments. That's not really nice, Stefan.
Jeffrey, you back up? Muted, Jeff, you're muted.
You there, Jeff?
Still muted.
Working on it. Okay. I was about to say, you guys are just totally lucky. I'm muted. Mike was just a lot of fun to talk to. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing most of the time. He said, here, this is big leaf maple. I bought the piece, turned it. The wood speaks for itself. I love the figure. And I've bought every piece of big leaf maple I could get my hands on since. That's the piece that got it started. One of these days I will get a picture of a Christmas tree I did out of big leaf maple, inspired by the small projects a couple of months ago. Gave it to my son's in-laws and didn't get a picture at the time, but one of these days I will get a picture and share it with you. But you know, you had questions, Mike had answers, and love that big leaf maple.
Nice towel too.
Yeah.
That's the old backdrop.
It was a nice piece.
Yeah, that's the old one. I switched over to gray after Vase demo.
Good upgrade.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, well, I'm gonna close this out with I've turned a lot of Mike Smith wood over the years, so I had to like reach back into my photos and say, what one would I bring up again? And this had to be my favorite piece. It's my favorite piece in general, but from Mike Smith wood. And to me, it's quintessential Mike Smith wood because the wood itself looks like it's horribly flawed and will fight you miserably, and you never really know. You think it might be interesting. And this one, I was just starting to get to work on the CNC machine at NC State. And this was one of the first 4 that I did that I said, well, you know, it's a wormy piece of wood. I didn't pay a lot for it. If it messes up, I don't feel bad. But I just CNC'd that pattern in. And the interesting thing that happened is that when I added the resin, it took a lot more resin than I thought because all the resin just seeped through all the wormholes and basically penetrated 70 to 80% of that wood. And in so doing, it allowed me to turn it really thin because it was so strong. So that pattern was only about 1/2 inch to 3/4 deep. So I had a long stretched out rim to capture that figure. And it held up just fine. It was pretty solid all the way through. But my favorite Mikeism is from across the room. So he says, but is this wood dry, Mike? And he would say, well, it's been on the ground for 3 or 4 years. It's got to be. Who hasn't heard that from Mike?
That's beautiful. I love that piece.
It's awesome, Norm.
Yeah, I've never seen that piece, Norm. That is gorgeous.
It's from a few years ago. I did it the year AEW was in Raleigh. But that's all we got. Anybody else?
Nice.
I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I was just joking. I said, doesn't it feel like Raleigh was just last year?
It does.
I was just going to say one Mike Smith story I had is I did go out to his mill and look at all the wood that he had, and I actually got a couple of beautiful pieces of box elder with some really fine red veins running through it that I've been meaning to make something with them and just haven't gotten around to it yet. So hopefully I will do that, and then hopefully they won't fade as bad as I think they might after I get done, but we'll see. But Mike was so nice and so kind and so helpful when I was out there. It was unbelievable.
Oh.
You know, I think so many of us have collected Mike Smith wood and not done anything, that going forward, when we submit pieces to the gallery, in the caption, you should say one word, Mike Smith wood.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Absolutely.
So if I can just jump in here about talking about the Mike Smith thing. I didn't. So in the last few months, I've shown you guys some pictures of, I think, some really grand black walnut bowls that I've done. There were 2 of them. And so that was wood that I got from Mike. And it was actually at that demo, I think, that that you guys were just talking about, Stefan was mentioning. So we were out there and my wife came too, and she was standing next to this enormous black walnut log, and asked me what it was, and I told her, and so we talked to Mike about it, and he just said, "Do you want some of this?" And so, well, terrific, you know. And I was thinking, wow, it would be nice to make some grand bowls. So I ordered, you know, a couple 8-inch or 10-inch thick slabs, and so he wasn't going to do it right then. And so I saw him a month or two later at one of the meetings in Raleigh, and yeah, sure enough, he had in the back of his pickup truck these enormous pieces of wood. He apologized for missing on the cut. One of them was 8 inches deep. The other one was 12 inches deep. But he said, but it kind of went through a number of piths, and then there's a whole bunch of branches that come out from it. He said, so, you know, yeah, I don't know if you want this. So of course I did, and he refused to take very much money for it. I mean, I did pay him for them, but not what they were worth at all. Anyway, that was so terrific. I really loved him for that. And it was actually really comical because my car at the time was a Toyota Corolla. And he said, well, do you want this? And so I opened the back of it up, and we put the seats down, and he got help from some of you guys there, I think, and we stuck it in the car, and I thought the front wheels were going to come off the ground on the way home. I mean, it was just so weighed down. But, you know, there was that. And then I had made a number of trips out to his place and spent several really lovely afternoons walking around and talking about the wood and picking things up. And I would just toss them over on the pile, you know, until I'd filled the whole trunk of the car up. You know, and then he would tally everything up and then give some huge discount on the whole thing. So I've turned a lot of it. Some of it I still have, but yeah, I miss Mike, and I'm glad to have known him.
By the way, anything you've gotten from our storage shed, that's all Mike Smith wood, if there's any question, with very rare exception.
But does anybody know how he became involved in the WGNC? Was he one of the founders, or he lived so far away from Raleigh? How did he get involved?
That'd have to be a Bob question.
I truly don't know. I know that he wasn't a founder. I'd belonged for some years before he started showing up at meetings.
I think Roger Barrow introduced him to the club.
That's entirely possible.
Because I know he was supplying Roger with some wood up at Eastwick Hardwoods.
Well, I know I enjoyed seeing Mike at all the meetings. He was at almost every one, it seemed like, with a load of wood, you know, and people really like that, you know, being able to see a new selection of wood and so forth. They're looking for something, and he was there. It was a great opportunity to buy, and he was always quite friendly and helpful, you know, with any questions on stuff too. So it was always a pleasure seeing him there.
Yeah, I remember Tracy always encouraging whoever he was sitting around to buy something from Mike, because he was coming to all the meetings and going to the effort of loading his truck up there and unloading it and loading it back up and taking it home. And he was just a real fun guy to talk to. I would, he'd say, you know, Preston, you all know to get this piece of wood. I said, you know, Mike, I don't know how to turn anything that nice. He goes, no, you do. Yeah.
All right, well, thanks to everybody for coming tonight and all the wonderful comments about Mike, of course, and sharing your work and so forth. It's a lot of great pieces in there we saw again tonight, and those will all be up on the website so you can see them. They're on the Facebook page right now, so you can see them out there again, but they'll also be on our website under the gallery. Bob puts them up there, so.
Well, Ted, in the immortal words of Mr. Early, again, I am blown away by the craftsmanship and talent and artistic ability of this group. It's just amazing to see what everybody has done. I completely am blown away all the time.
Yep, I think everyone would agree that it's
Mhm.
so good to see all the stuff. And Ray, thanks for bringing Devin along too. If he's still
Yeah.
there, he may have
Yes, that
left.
was really cool.